Hello, I don't know how to start recording things. So, yes, cringe, boy, girl, whatever the fuck. So, welcome back to Seen Not Heard. I am ADHD_God, and Seen Not Heard is made by LitaCakes. Yes. We will be reading chapter 4. If there are trigger warnings for this, there is suicide beating, some minor violence, and talk of abuse. If any of that triggers you in any way, or you feel uncomfortable listening to that, why are you still here? Just to stuff you. But also, Izuku does not take any people's shit anymore. So, yeah. Okay. Now, chapter 4. The real villains in life are the people we thought we could trust. Hey, boss. An officer knocked at the door. Shota glared at him, then realized the room was short one person. What? Tsukashi put his hands on his hips, clearly annoyed. That kid? Did you want us to stop him? What? Shota sighed, rubbing at the migraine forming in his temples. The kid had vanished like he had never been here. He took the file on the vigilante, which meant he was accepting the assignment. Eraser wasn't yet convinced that the kid was a vigilante, but he wasn't convinced he wasn't either. This was a sticky situation. They didn't even have a name or an address for Koichi, the analyst. Why did you let him leave? Tsukashi was yapping at the officer at his door. Well, he wasn't doing no any trouble. He just grabbed a coffee and walked casually out the door. Did something happen? You've been in here for a few hours going over files, it looks like. Never mind. Just get out. Send a patrol car to see if you spot a kid walking home. If you do, follow him at a distance. Do not engage. Just get an address. An address. Understood, sir. Understood, sir. Shota knew that it was a fruitless effort. If that kid was really a vigilante, specifically the one who ran away from Eraserhead, they'd never find him. Shota grabbed his duffel bag from the corner and put a hand on Tsukashi's shoulder. I'm heading out. I need sleep. It's past 4 a.m. We kept a teen in here all night. I think that kid has more issues than possibly being a vigilante. What do you mean by that? He didn't seem fazed by any of this. The kid walked around like a ghost. That's red flag number 1 in my mind. How so, Eraser? Kids don't get good at hiding their existence without serious practice or an urge to need to hide it. On top of that, didn't you notice the scars on his hands and forearms? Cigarette burns. I'm not convinced that this kid is our vigilante, but I'm convinced he's not innocent either. However, I'm going to keep working with Koichi. If I earn his trust, maybe he will tell me what's going on at home. If you think No, I don't think Tsukashi. I know, or at least he used to. None of these marks look recent. He might just be a runaway now. It would explain how he slipped into vigilantism. If he's really the same kid, I'll keep an eye out for the kid for a while. I'm on patrol and see if he's there, if I can earn his trust out there. Tsukashi sighed. Alright, Eraser. Go get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow night. Shota walked slowly towards home. He could have brought his car, but he chose to vault the roofs to work late last night. Now, as the sun was just hiding at the horizon, he was wishing he had brought it so he could go get home faster, guaranteed. Granted, he would have been in sort of a haze on the road in his exhausted state. He made it home by 4:30 and dropped everything at the door so he could go collapse on his bed with his beautiful husband. Hisashi would be getting up for his own job in a couple hours. Shota made the most of what little cuddles he could manage to get. The smell of mint and pine stuck in his nose as he curled up around the blonde lump in the bed. A small groan sounded as Hisashi rolled over and tucked his head under Shota's chin like always. Sho? A sleepy voice asked. Shh, sleep, Hisashi. The blonde didn't even need to be told twice. Apparently, strong arms held Shota tightly. The second he was in a second he was out like a light. A month and a half has passed since Izuku's police station excursion. 6 weeks where everything seemed normal. Well, as normal as things in Izuku's life could get. He saw Eraserhead almost every night on patrol. They never spoke. They just stared at each other across rooftops until one or both of them decided to vanish into the night. Izuku usually broke first and ran away. After the first few chases, Eraserhead stopped trying to chase him down each night, instead opted for observation and quiet stalking. Izuku could tell, and quiet sulking. Izuku could tell he was sulking. He had this annoyed look on his face before Izuku left every night. High school entrance exams were coming, and Izuku didn't have a plan of where to go or even wanted to go, or if he even wanted to go. Originally, he wanted to get accepted into UA for their business program, but Eraserhead was on his trail. He could easily consider attending school there. He'd still enlist in UA on his planning sheet. In the middle sheet his middle school had made them fill out. He was sitting in his homeroom, staring out the window with his chin on his hand, when the teacher announced they had 2 students applying for UA. Of course, because of Katsuki, he was still in his class. Of course, they had to mention he was applying to UA too. It didn't matter that he had listed the business course. And it didn't matter that Izuku knew he could never be a hero, or that he didn't want to be one anymore. Katsuki's Sorry, there's a squirrel in my window. Katsuki's palms slammed down on his desk, the crackling of his explosion quirk making black score marks on the wooden surface. Izuku stopped flinching at the blonde. Ages ago. He glanced up to meet Katsuki's eyes. He felt like he wouldn't have even lasted a semester. Izuku was so tired of this bullshit. He was so damn tired of being bullied, being abused. He hated being hated for somebody something he had zero control over. What's a little worthless Deku like you think you're gonna get into offer to UA, huh? You could just quit while you're ahead, Deku. Oh, wait, you're not ahead. Everybody in the room laughed. Everybody except Izuku. He rolled his eyes behind closed lids. Not long ago, Izuku might have cried at those words. Since he's moved out on his own, he started actively working as a vigilante. He has stopped taking people's bullshit, at least on the street. In his civilian life, he still had to put up with it, to an extent. Today seemed like Katsuki wanted to really push Izuku's patience. The bell rang and most of the kids left, along with the teacher. If you want to be a hero so badly, there's an easy way to Deku. Just pray for quirk in your next life and take a swan dive off a roof. Izuku was out of his seat. His desk shoved to the side. In an instant, he was practically nose to nose with Katsuki, seething in his face. How dare he suggest that? How dare Katsuki fucking Bakugo, of all people, suicide bait him? This idiotic blonde wanted to be a hero more than anyone in their entire year. He claimed to be the best hero, yet here he was telling a quote-unquote disabled and sick kid to jump off a roof. You'll never be a real hero if you can't even help those who can't help themselves. You're pathetic. You're not a fucking hero. You're a villain. Izuku signed. He knew nobody around him could understand signs though. The fuck did you just say to me? Katsuki barked. Izuku didn't even try to clarify. He grabbed his bag and moved towards the door to leave. Katsuki, of course, wasn't about to let that happen. He grabbed the back of Izuku's neck sleeve and yanked, tugging it down. Izuku panicked. No one has ever touched his face or neck since that incident. Fear and rage poured out of him like a waterfall. His body lashed out against the wall. Izuku howled in anger, grabbing Katsuki's arm and sidestepping backwards till he could slide the boy's arm against his shoulder. He and health and the explosive blonde and flip the explosive bond over him. Katsuki landed on his back hard against the wooden floor with a loud flood. Two lackeys who were usually accompanying him, Katsuki bolted out of the accompanying him. Katsuki bolted out of the room, crying for a teacher. Izuku's panted breath quickly adjusted his sleeve around his neck so no one could see the scar that peeked out from under his mask. Never. He'll never let anybody see his shame, his greatest weakness, his greatest fear. Katsuki rolled to his side, groaning and clutching his ribs. They were probably bruised, if he was lucky, or if not, there were a few cracked bones in there. Katsuki deserved it. The harsh reality of life came crashing back to him. But Izuku, the quirkless child, had attacked the top student in their class. There was no question about what would happen. He'll be expelled unless he did something about it. Izuku grabbed the notebook from his bag and scribbled a note on it before handing it to Katsuki. The boy winced at it first, thinking it was another attack, before realizing it was just a note. If you tell them it was me, I'll tell them you told me to kill myself. If not, both of us walk away. I will resend my application to UA. Katsuki sneered at the note for stared at the note for a long minute, and Izuku was really struggling not to run off, to be patient. Fine, deal. The reply was grunted. Izuku held out his hand and helped the blonde back on his feet. Katsuki glared at him for a long minute before limping off towards the infirmary. Izuku could hear the shouting in the hallway that somebody left their desk, and he tripped. The teacher didn't seem to be buying it. But since the only proof was kid's word, they'd have to take it. Izuku sighed in relief. At least he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. He got out of a self-argument over UA and maybe got Katsuki off his back for a few days. Progress was progress, right? Right? He wandered out of the school with a little trouble. He felt listless and floaty. The back of his neck ached, where Katsuki had grabbed him, like the burn was there instead of the front. Izuku didn't even realize he was back to his apartment until the door clicked shutting behind him. The sound of loud in the silence. His phone started to ring, bringing him out of it. Without thinking, he answered with a video chat. Kaishi? Eraserhead voice came out of the speaker. Izuku yelled quickly and turned off the video conference, dropping the phone in the process. It clattered across the floor. Izuku groaned. Are you okay? Eraserhead asked. Izuku picked up the phone and struggled, then realized that Eraserhead was on the damn phone, and he couldn't hear him. Izuku face-palmed on the forehead. Why was Eraserhead calling? He knew Izuku was mute. Izuku finally answered. Sorry, I know you can't speak. I just wanted to check in, though. This would get your attention better than a text. I know you've been busy on the files that I sent over last week. It's not just to go a few days. It's not normal just to go a few days without hearing from you. Shit. Izuku had completely forgotten about that file. It was for some drug dealer Eraser had been trying to catch, and that guy had a stealth quirk, which was evading extraditing the underground hero. Really needed a full analyzation on this guy. Izuku herded to his small table and opened his laptop. The report was about half done. He could finish it tonight. He pulled out the text-to-speech program and set his phone on the table. After hitting the speakerphone button. I'm fine, Eraser. Just busy with school finals. I'm sorry, I should have said something. Oh, it's alright, kid. Izuku winced at the word and quickly typed out another message, cutting off Eraserhead. Please don't call me that. Sure. Can I ask why? I mean, why you don't like being called a you know, you are a teenager. I'm just not kid or child, not boy either. Eraserhead was silent for a long time. Izuku would believe he hung up or if the timer was still ticking on the call screen. Can I ask you why, Koichi? He finally asked in his voice dark. There was something in it that said danger, but Izuku knew it wasn't directed towards him. No, you cannot. Not yet. One day I will tell you, I promise. Not today, Eraser. Eraserhead hummed at the other end of the line. Shota. Izuku made a little startled noise and confused. Call me Shota. Shota Aizawa. It was a true excuse. He was giving Izuku something valuable and confidently asking for Izuku to trust him back. Izuku leaned back a little, grabbing the bottom of his uniform to keep him calm. Then he realized he was still in his uniform. His whole body was revolted. He jerked upwards and clambered around the apartment, quickly changing out of dirty clothes into something fresh and clean. Even all the time away from Izuku, from Inko. All the time away from Inko. The habits she forced on him, into him, were still strong. She was right. After all, he was a germy, quirkless child. He just got everything dirty if he wasn't careful. Koichi? Eraserhead called, likely hearing him stumble around the apartment. Izuku yelped again, having totally forgotten he was in the middle of a conversation and his mind freaked over his uniform. The offending clothes were in his laundry basket by the front door, ready to be in the laundry tonight, which means he had to go out in the commons area of the apartment complex. Izuku slipped back to the table and returned to his laptop. Izukai Akamaya. Sorry if I butchered it. You can call me Izu. Alright, Izu. I will see you tonight. Will I see you tonight? Izuku blinked. That was a trick question. Or did he actually plan to meet and he forgot? No, they didn't have anything on his calendar for Eraserhead. He knew without even thinking about it, it was a trick question. I have to finish those files before tomorrow showed up. Thanks. Izuku was pretty sure he had failed that test by not reacting. Basically, he told Eraser he knew what the trick was. He knew it was a test. He chose to proceed and did not exit. Groaning loudly, he flopped backwards onto the tatami floor of his apartment, covered his eyes with his arm. If he could start right now, he could finish the files before patrol and had to schedule sent out while out. Have it scheduled to be sent out while he was out, though he'd probably harshly be convinced proof that two Kaishis weren't one person. Izuku was so tired. He ended up finishing the files and sending it off before he went on patrol that evening. It wasn't nearly his best work, but he was sure it would help Eraserhead get an arrest. Izuku didn't even try to hide tonight on patrol. He found a nice building with a flat roof and perched on the ledge like he always, waiting for Eraserhead to find him. It only took a couple hours for the underground hero's feet to slap against the concrete behind Izuku. Potentially loud, so not to startle him. Izuku turned his masked face towards Eraserhead, and the hero actually winced. Damn, did he really look that bad today? Probably. After everything Katsuki floated around in his head all day. On top of that, there was an awful sensation still gragging at his neck, the back of his neck. and then finishing a report in hours, which he should have taken him days. Yeah, he was wiped out. Have you even slept, kid? Izuku winced and slapped at that word, slapped him. The sound of Hisashi's voice filling his mind. He hated that fucking word. It it wasn't the worst word, but it was still bad, still offensive. You okay? Eraser had moved closer and tried to offer out a hand. Izuku moved away and shook his head. Eraser had tilted hands, lifted his hands from in surrender. Sorry, you just looked like you could use a hand, you know? You look like you had a rough day. Of course he had a rough fucking day, because the universe hated quirkless little Dekus like him. What day was even a joyride in his life? None of them. Absolutely none of them. Izuku took a few steadying breaths, struggling gently, trying not to let Eraser see his anger or frustration at the comment. Right, look, I really think you should come in. You've been on the streets for years now. We've just want to help to get you back home, or you can be safe and not constantly fighting for survival. Something in Izuku's brain just snapped. There was no way he could ever go back to her, to Inko. Never. He refused. His whole mind was screaming out, begging for help, for freedom. No. He would never let that woman muzzle him again, or never shove him into a closet again, never force him to pretend he didn't exist. No. Izuku wanted to scream at the top of his lungs, I am still here! I exist! I am Izuku! Stop making me invisible! Don't you dare stand there and pretend you don't think you know what's best. Pretend you think you know what's best for me, he signed, storming towards Eraserhead with purpose. The man's eyes went wide and he stumbled backwards. Don't you dare tell me my life hasn't been about survival from the day I was born. You know nothing about me, about what I had to survive, what I've overcome, and what I get to, and how I got to where I am. I will never go back to that disgrace of a woman who birthed me into this world against my fucking will. She can't help me. Family can't help me. They only ever brought me pain and stole my existence, my voice, my voice, my everything. I am seen and never heard. I am Koichi, soundless. That is all I am. But I have made it into something powerful, so don't you dare tell me I am nothing on my own. I am so tired of people telling me I'm not enough just as I am. Leave me alone, Shota. Stop making me something I'm not. You're just as bad as everyone else who only wants me to disappear back to my place in this world, under everybody else's foot. Never again. Izuku's whole body was making the words to this point. Every inch of him was pouring his anger and pain and anguish and pain. He couldn't take any more. He refused to let anybody believe he needed that awful woman or anybody but himself. He was strong. He was stronger this way. He could protect himself. He had trained and practiced and forgotten to protect and fought to protect himself protect all by himself. He didn't need that. No one else. Letting out a shaky breath, Izuku stepped back and shook his head, knowing Eraserhead likely understood none of that. He looked off to the side and wiped off a tear from his face. After finishing, Eraserhead waved a hand to get Izuku's attention. When Izuku looked up, he spoke in sign. I will never tell you you aren't enough as you are, Koichi. You are brave and strong. I don't, and I didn't know you had been through so much. I won't ever say things like that again, I promise, but I want you to understand you don't have to be alone. You aren't alone. I am here. I want to offer whatever I can, whatever helps you to what you need or want. Izuku froze up. May had been the only one who had ever tried to speak in sign to him. The only one who ever took the time and effort to communicate with him open and easily, but it wasn't just that. Eraserhead had called him strong and brave. Eraserhead had offered to help him, but not out of pity or because he thought Izuku was weak. He was offering because he didn't want Izuku to be alone. He clutched his face mask at the dam, and the dam finally broke. Everything came crashing down around Izuku. That too full feeling he always got from his chest, from everything, was just too much. Too many emotions. It was spilling over, and he couldn't control it. Sobs overtook him, rattling in his chest. He collapsed on his knees. Izuku didn't realize that Eraserhead was right at his side at first, but the strong arms wrapped around him and started to rock him back and forth slowly. The man did not try to make Izuku shut up. He didn't even yell at Izuku for being loud or being emotional. He just held the teen, rocking him in his arms. Izuku realized this is what it felt like to be comforted. That realization only made him cry harder. Shota closed his eyes and cradled the sobbing teenager to his chest. He didn't speak, he didn't move, he just held Koichi in his arms, tried to soothe his aching soul. There was no words. He couldn't fix this. That could fix this. There was no bits of wisdom that could make the kid see that he was loved and not alone. No. The only thing that would prove it would be action. Shota knew that all too well. Gaining this child's trust had been a mountain Shota had to climb. It halfway before realizing how big that mountain even was. Now he could see the pain and anguish in the hoarseness in this child's sobbing voice. Koichi was just a teen. He had probably survived more than most poor heroes have ever faced in their whole lives. He had fought more battles than Shota could even imagine. He had the scars on the body and he had scars on his hands and arms. Hell, he saw the edge of something under the teen's mask, too. He knew there was a chance Koichi was holding more than just mutism under that mask. But he'll never force the kid to tell him not if he was not ready. Shota looked up at the sky and sighed gently. A few unwanted tears trickled down his face. The broken sobs and cries from the boy in his arm had settled down finally. Koichi was quietly crying against his chest. fingers tangled in Shota's hero suit. He wasn't sure if he'd ever get free, but then he didn't really want to let go. If he did, would Koichi just vanish again and go back to his life as a vigilante? Shota was determined to bring him in and help him get back to a normal life, or maybe just start a new one. Hisashi had brought in Hisashi had been waiting to adopt for years now. Shota was hiding his excitement for the idea. Maybe this was an opportunity to better the lives of both himself and his husband, as well as somebody he needed love and kindness. A tap on Izuku's shoulder. A tap on his shoulder pulled Shota's mind back to the small teenager in his arms. He was signing again. Izuku Midoriya. That is my real name. I lied. I am not. I came. Shota tilted his head a little to the side. Do I need to ask if you're admitting you are both analyst and vigilante? The kid snorted and wiped his sopping wet face with his sleeves. I am Izuku Midoriya, Izu Kamai Koichi, the informant and vigilante. Shota nodded slowly, realizing the boy in his arms, gently sitting back on his heels. All right, Izuku. He profoundly chose not to use the kid's family name, given that what he said earlier. You know, I gotta take you in, right? Just for questions. And then, if you want, would you like to come home with me? My husband could be me and my husband could be your guardians while we look for a place for you. You're still underage, so we can't let you continue to live on your own. But I won't treat you like you don't know how to take care of yourself, okay? I promise we won't be sending you anywhere near your, biological family again. Promise? Izuku asked, and Shota's heart shattered. He didn't worry about the police questionings, or going home with a pro, or even having guardians. Hell, he wasn't even asking if he'd be sent to jail for vigilantism. No, he worried about being sent back to his family, or at least his blood relatives. That was all. That was all. They all were. And at the end, Shota knew that blood didn't always equal family. I promise, Izuku, they won't hurt you. They hurt you, didn't they? You said they, Shota sighed, reaching out for his hand towards Izuku's face, but stopping before he got there. Within a foot of the mask, they took your voice. Izuku nodded, letting out a sniff. He seemed to be debating something on his mind. Eyes were searching the ground between both of them. Shota was a patient man, and tonight he had all the patience in the world for this poor boy who had been hurt so much in his very short years of being on this earth. When Izuku came to the conclusion Shota wasn't privy, he looked back up and did something Shota never expected him to do. The teen reached back behind his ears and pulled off his mask, along with his neck sleeve he wore. A sigh behind fury. The sight sent rigorous fury behind, though Shota's body seemed felt like it was boiling in the very marrow of his bones. That what lay under the mask was a burn scar in the shape of a handprint, half covered in his mouth that ran down to his neck, marrying Izuku's cheek as well. Shota tried to swallow back and decided to maim the person who did this. The only thing that could make these burns were fireworks. After all, not many people could set their hands on fire and not be hurt in return. That explains the cigarette burns he saw on Izuku's arms. Now he could to see a pattern of abuse. Shota reached out and tried to cup Izuku's face. The boy allowed it. He didn't go anywhere near the scar. It looked sensitive. Shota wasn't going to offend the kid by accident. Thank you for sharing this with me. I understand. You will never have to show this to anyone if you don't want to, okay? Izuku nodded to him and used one hand to replace his mask, the other hand clinging to Shota's hand. Alright, are you ready to go get this over with? Izuku nodded again, stumbling to his feet shakily. Shota steadied himself carefully over the boy's shoulder. Together, they walked to the police station. The whole walk, Izuku never stopped clutching to the side of Shota's hero suit. Neither of them mentioned it.